Okay, it's day one of our no grocery shopping week, and I've been thinking all day what is the best thing for me to make for dinner. So I think what I've come up with is a homemade pizza. I have restarted my sourdough, so I'm gonna use some of my sourdough discard for the crust, add a few other ingredients. I've got some sausage that needs to be used. I also have some mozzarella cheese and some canned tomatoes. So I think we can put together a pretty good homemade pizza using all of our ingredients that we already have at home, and I have some lettuce or some spring mix to go on the side with a side salad. So I think that's what we're gonna make. Let's start gathering all of the ingredients. She's looking really good and bubbly. I've been working on her for about 5 days. I had been using some other flour, but I finally started using some organic, higher quality flour, and she is ready to go. There's several things I need to do on the stove. I'm gonna start by cooking this sausage. Just gonna try to crumble it and brown it. Then we'll start working on our pizza sauce. For our sauce, I'm going to start with a small can of diced tomatoes. I have drained most of the water. It would definitely be better if I had tomato sauce to work with, but I don't, so this is just going to have to do for now. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of olive oil and about a tablespoon of sugar. Sugar is optional, but I find that if you don't add the sugar or some other kind of sweetener, it just really gets to be too acidic. Just adds a lot of good flavor. And then let's add about 2 teaspoons of Italian seasoning. I'm gonna just allow this to cook down, and then we'll sort of deal with the chunks in a minute. I'm just wanting to heat it through, get all of those flavors combined while I'm working on the pizza crust. For our crust, I'm going to use this active sourdough. You don't have to use sourdough. I'll put an alternative option down in the description so that you can make this pizza dough even if you don't have sourdough in your home. But I would highly recommend that you just give it a try. I have a couple of videos about starting your own sourdough. I know it seems like it's difficult, but it really isn't. It's really easy. If I can do it, anybody can do it. So just consider giving it a try. It adds a lot to the quality and value, health benefits of your baked breads and pastries. So watch a couple of those videos and then consider giving it a try. But again, I will put down below another alternative recipe for you to try if you just really don't want to give the sourdough a go. That's fine too. That it'll work either way. So I'm going to add 1 cup of flour, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I really need to do this pantry and freezer clean out because I've just really let everything get overwhelmingly crowded. It's time for me to take a little bit of time and clean everything out. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt. I'm just going to mix all of this together. There's a likelihood that I'm going to need some water, but I'm not going to add any yet. I'm going to just see how this turns out before I add any water. Okay, that's coming together pretty well. I'm going to bake the pizza in this cast iron cookie sheet. I'm going to put a little bit of olive oil on it and go ahead and throw it in an oven while it's preheating. And also check on our tomato sauce. I'll try to break those tomatoes down a little bit. Okay, I'm going to put a little bit of flour on the counter. You can use a cutting board. My counter is pretty clean and it's already a good stable surface for this. That's one good thing about having butcher block. We used butcher block because of the affordability of it, but I really enjoyed having it. And even though you can see that it sort of scars up a little and gets a little yucky, to me it just adds character, and I'm going for an old farmhouse look anyway, so it just helps me along on my journey. I'm gonna try to knead this out and roll it out to about the same size as our baking dish. Okay, is that perfect? No, it's definitely not perfect, but it is going to get the job done, and we will get it on our heated baking sheet in just a second. Our tomato sauce is nice and cooked through, actually burning a little, so that's gonna be really good. Hopefully that will be enough. We may have a thin layer, but that's okay. And then our sausage is nice and crumbly. I'm gonna drain this while the baking sheet is preheating, and then we will be ready to put everything together. I have 8 ounces of mozzarella cheese. I found some Parmesan cheese in the fridge and it needs to be used up. So I'm just gonna add that to our mozzarella. Mix it up really well. Make sure I spill at least half of it on the counter, and then we'll be all ready to go. Don't touch, don't touch.
Yeah, Mommy.
Okay, let's try to put our pizza dough in its place.
I just got out of the hose.
It's okay if it's not perfect. It's gonna cook up fine, and nobody's really gonna see this part anyway, so don't fret about it being a little bit wonky and not quite like you want it. It's fine. Just sort of press it down so that it's not lumpy. I had a little bit of help rolling that part out, so that part is a little bit too thin, but again, it's fine. Not a big deal. We're gonna start with our sauce. I'm just gonna spoon our sauce on and then spread it out as well as I can. Now our cheese. I've mixed this up as well as I can to make sure that both cheeses are combined well. This is a lot of cheese, but we don't have a lot of toppings, so it's got to do a good amount of work. If you want a crispier pizza crust, you can put the crust on the baking dish, put it back in the oven plain, and allow it to bake for maybe 10 minutes. That will crisp up the crust, but it's also going to take some more time. So that's why I'm just going to do everything together, and however it turns out will be just fine for us. Okay, now we're all ready to go into the oven. I'm going to bake this at 425 for about 15 to 20 minutes until everything is nice and crisp. This looks really good. Not bad for a pantry clean out meal. We're going to have it with some spring mix. I've been growing my own microgreens, so I'm going to add that to some of our salads. Chopped up some tomatoes. Pizza is one of my favorite foods. Do y'all like the corner piece or the middle piece? Everybody has an opinion on that, I've found. I'll just take 2 of these. I'll just take the first 2 pieces and let everyone else choose their favorites. I'll probably buy a couple of fresh produce items this week. It's always nice to have fresh produce, even when you're trying to do a pantry clean out. This is my second batch of microgreens. The first one did really well, So I'm starting on my second one. They're really good, healthy, nutritious, but they're also very expensive. They're super easy to make yourself, or to grow yourself. So you might want to give that a try. I'm pretty sure this is going to be a family favorite. Okay, I'm gonna need you to take off your judgmental pants and put on some really understanding, gracious britches, because my freezer, my laundry room, everything is a little bit of a mess, but I just wanted to bring you along on the process. So it's a new day. I think I've decided I'm going to do ham for dinner. I know that I've got one large ham in here. See, y'all, this is just a wreck. I need some organizational tips. Maybe I can come up with some. But I've got this big ham that has been in here for quite a while. I think it's time for me to find something to do with it. I'm gonna take it out and let it thaw. I'll see how much I can get it to thaw out this morning. That'll give me some time to think about what I'm gonna do with it for tonight's dinner. I don't have a ton of vegetables in the freezer for us to have for side dishes for our meals, but I do have a lot of green beans. My mom gave them to me when she was cleaning out her freezer to make room for their fresh green beans last year. So I'm gonna cook some of these on the stovetop. And I think I'm also going to gather up some potatoes and boil them for another side. This should be more than enough for this evening's meal. I will put that in the refrigerator in a little bit and let it continue to thaw. I'm gonna heat up a little bit of this bacon grease. I could use butter, but this is something that I need to use up anyway. Okay, now the skillet is pretty hot. I'm just gonna lay the pieces of ham, fitting as much as I can in there at once. See how it's browning up right there? I think that means it's about time for us to flip them over. After the first batch, it gets easier to get them nice and browned. This is a good example of a really good, healthy, delicious meal that doesn't have to cost a lot of money. It doesn't have to be extravagant or hard. You don't get extra points for staying in the kitchen all the time making these elaborate meals. As long as your family is fed and cared for and you have healthy, nourishing food available, doesn't mean that you have to do an 8-course meal every single night. There's places for that, but on any old regular Tuesday night, that's just not necessary. I think our potatoes may be done. We just want them to be fork tender. That's pretty good. I'm gonna add about a tablespoon of butter and about half a cup of milk. You can mash these, but you don't want them to become mashed potatoes, just enough to be a little broken down and the milk and water to become a little thicker with the broken up potatoes. I think we better get these off. Thought they were going to be burnt, but they aren't. Nice and browned. This is so good, and it's also really good for biscuits, which makes me think maybe that's something else we'll have this week. Yeah, you can.
What do we eat for supper?
potatoes. I think you do. Well, let's not complain. Hey, we're not gonna cry about it. Well, even though Lane was definitely not a fan of this ham dinner, I certainly enjoyed it. It was a very comfort food meal, and it was one of my favorites this week. Okay, it's time for me to settle on dinner. I've been sort of thinking all day about what should I make with this ham. We've got a lot of the ham left over that we started eating on yesterday, and so I think I've come up with a plan. I had told y'all about this pasta that I bought at Aldi for like 19 cents. I got 6 or 7 of them, and I don't even know if I've eaten any of it yet. So I'm going to make a pasta ham bake in the oven using some broccoli and some cheese, the ham that we have. I'm gonna top it with some crackers for a little bit of a nice crunch on the top. I'm gonna make a little bit of a cheddar sauce on the stove to sort of blend it all together. So I think that's what I'm gonna do. Hope it turns out okay, but this is gonna get rid of several things in my pantry and in my freezer. So we're whittling away at the big honey ham. Hopefully we might have 1 or 2 more meals on it after tonight, and then I think everybody will be tired of it. So that will be good timing. Okay, I've got my ham cut up and I've got my butter melted. Now it's time for me to make my roux for my cheese sauce. So I'm gonna whisk in 3 tablespoons of flour. I'm gonna cook this until all of the flour flavor is gone. This is a really good way to keep from feeling like you're eating like raw flour when you're making your own sauces. It's also a really good way to keep it from clumping up. So this will cook for about 2 minutes. Okay, now we're going to add 2 cups of milk. I'm going to try to add it slowly. That also will prevent it from clumping up. This has thickened up a lot, and that didn't take long, maybe 4 minutes or so. So I'm gonna add 2 cups of shredded cheese. And we'll just stir this until it melts. Okay, so we're about ready to put everything together. I wanted to show you the pasta. Some of you had said, whoa, I almost spilled all of that. Some of you said that the pasta sort of came apart whenever you made it. So I tried to be really careful not to stir it a lot, not to overcook it. So I'm gonna add that last. I'm gonna put everything else together, and then we'll sort of carefully stir in the pasta. My family bought me this casserole dish and I love it. So I think I'm gonna use this, and I need to mix everything together first. So I'm gonna pour in my 2 cups of ham, 1 cup of shredded cheese, all of our cheese sauce. I'm gonna add 1 bag of broccoli. I'm gonna carefully mix all of this together. I think I should have put that shredded cheese on top of everything instead of adding it in. So I'll change that in the recipe down below. I also think it needs a little bit more broccoli. I'm gonna go get 1 more bag. I don't know if they've shrunk the size of the bags or if I'm just getting different kinds, but that definitely did not look like enough. I think I'm gonna pour the pasta in, pour this in. And I'm just gonna sort of carefully mix everything together. Crushed up several crackers. This is probably like half a sleeve, maybe a little bit more. I'm just gonna sprinkle that on top. Maybe I should have added a little bit of butter to this. I don't know. Hopefully they won't burn. Okay, I'm feeling pretty good about this. It is a 1-dish meal, which is very good. And I think it's got a lot of good nutrition, and I got rid of a lot of stuff in my freezer and in my pantry. So I'm gonna cook this for about 20 minutes at 350 degrees, and then we'll see how it looks. It was really neat for me to be able to figure out how to make this cheese sauce. I will definitely be using that in other recipes as I go along. And this was a really nice way to use up a lot of the ingredients that have just been sitting around waiting to be eaten. Okay, it's been a long day. Today was baby goat day. Baby goats were born. Had some sickness. Had a full day of church. We had a friend to go visit in the hospital, and now it's supper time. And I'm super hungry, super not wanting to cook anything. I did overcome the urge to go get pizza, so at least we're starting with a win. My kitchen is a wreck. I think what I'm gonna do is just make some biscuits real quick and easy, scramble up some eggs, have some maybe egg and cheese biscuits for dinner, and then I'm gonna start more rejuvenated and more ready to stick to a regular meal plan tomorrow. So no ham. I do have a plan for the ham, so I'm excited to share that with you, and I was gonna do it tonight, but I'm just really too tired to start anything new, so biscuits it is. For this biscuit recipe, I'm going to use about 2 cups of flour, and I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of salt and about a teaspoon of baking soda and 3 teaspoons of baking powder. I'm going to mix all of that together really well, and then I'm going to add maybe 1/4 of a cup of bacon grease. So normally I would use coconut oil, but I think I'm gonna put this in here just to use up this bacon grease. It will add good flavor. Now that I've gotten it sort of combined into the flour mixture, I'm gonna add just enough milk for it to come together without it being too soupy. I would say that's probably 1/2 cup, maybe 3/4, and we'll work our way up if we need more. After you get your dough into this shape, into this condition, where you can work with it, you can either roll it out and cut it with a biscuit cutter or a cup, or you can just form the biscuits by hand. If I'm in a hurry or if I really just am tired and don't care, that's usually what I'll do. So I'll just take enough to make 1 biscuit. Just work it together. You don't want to work it to death because it will get tough. So that's not what you want to do. Okay, I'm gonna just set it here because I have my baking pan heating in the oven while the oven is preheating. And I put a little bit more grease on that. That just allows the bottom of the biscuit to get nice and crispy. You don't have to do that step. It's just the southern in me wants it to be a little crispy on the bottom. Okay, so this is what we have whenever the oven is preheated. I'm gonna put these in. I've preheated it to 425, so it'll take it just a few minutes to get ready. And then probably they'll take about 12 minutes or so to bake. I'm fixing it right now. Biscuits.
I love pieces, and I want to be dairy.
Jelly biscuit?
Yeah.
Okay.
I like biscuits. But they're better at Taco Bell.
Hey.
I'm just kidding.
Oh, thanks. The chickens are doing so good. I have so many eggs, so this will be another good way for me to use up some of the abundance that we have gathered. The trick to cooking eggs in an iron skillet is let it get very hot. And once you pour the eggs in, you're gonna want to let them sort of set for maybe 5 seconds or so. This was something that really discouraged me when I first started. It just took some time for me to learn all of the tricks about baking eggs or scrambling eggs in a skillet, in an iron skillet, and then after that it doesn't usually stick. So you can see how it's set on the edges. Now, other people scramble eggs differently, but this is how my mama scrambles eggs, so this is how I scramble eggs. Just move it around until everything is pretty much cooked through, and then you can turn the heat off and let them cook the rest of the way with just the heat of the skillet. That way they're not going to be like too done and dry and yucky. Let me see if I can find some cheese. These biscuits turned out really nice. They browned up perfectly on the bottom, and this was such a quick and easy dinner to put together, especially when I didn't feel like doing anything extra or new. I was just wanting to do something that I didn't really have to think about, and it's always so good to have those kinds of recipes at your fingertips. Being able to just throw together dinner without having to put any extra mental effort into it is really nice sometimes, and that's what a breakfast dinner is for me. You'll be glad to know that Lane ate these biscuits just as well as he does the Cracker Barrel biscuits. I decided to leave that little discourse between me and him into the video. I think he's so funny, and I love his sense of humor. We're certainly not done with our freezer and pantry clean out, but the last recipe that I have for you in this video is ham salad. I needed to prepare something for a lunch get together with my friends from church, and I had this ham. The hostess had said we were to make some kind of salad, and I wondered, is ham salad such a thing? Well, turns out ham salad is totally a thing, and it ends up being pretty good. I chopped up the ham really fine, and then I chopped up some pickles. I think it would have been better if I had used relish, but I just used about 3 pickles or so, chopped them up really fine, and added about a tablespoon of sugar to replace the sweetness that would have been in the relish. Then I added about a cup or so of mayonnaise, mixed it all together. I had baked some sourdough bread, so I was able to take that along with me. I thought this ham salad was a really good way to use up the last bit of our ham. I hope that you've enjoyed today's video. I'm certainly not finished with my pantry and freezer clean out. There's still so much in there that needs to be used up. I'm looking forward to sharing some of the ideas that I have to use up the rest of that food in next week's video. So if you haven't subscribed yet, I hope that you will do that. Also, if you are subscribed but you don't get the notifications when videos come out, I hope that you will go to your subscription, adjust your notifications, choose all on the notifications bar so you'll be notified when any new content is added to the channel. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you do have a wonderful week. I love you, and I will see you again next time.